Welcome to the Wednesday, March 5th Urban Renewal Commission meeting. Convene regular meeting and take roll call.
Commissioner Mengelberg.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Benville. Commissioner Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Mum.
Here.
Commissioner Roth.
Here.
And Chair Pauly.
Here. All right. Do we have any citizen comments tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Are there any changes to the agenda, or are we going to adopt as presented? Okay,
Yeah, I think it's fine.
adopt as presented. Moving on to general business, we have 14-133, Urban Renewal Storefront Grant for 610 McLaughlin Boulevard, the Oregon City Elks. Can you present a staff report, Eric?
Sure, thank you. Yes, we have a storefront grant application from the Elks Lodge for an amount of $6,000. It's a small project. It consists primarily of just painting the 99 east frontage, which is one of the things that the commission has wanted to encourage is some rehabilitation on those buildings that are fronting 99. So this is the first one of those applications. So you have the color palette, I think, in your packet. It's just the front side of the building. They painted the north side earlier, I guess, a year or so ago?
This will be the front and the 6th Street.
The front and the 6th Street facade. So staff has reviewed it. They meet all the criteria. However, I think we still need some documentation showing that the applicant can apply for this grant on behalf of the Elks Club. So that's forthcoming from what I understand. The documentation saying that you are authorized to apply for this. I should have it. Okay, so we have it. I'll have to. It must have just come in. I'll have to check my piles in my desk. So other than that, we would recommend approval of this grant. The funds are budgeted for it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mayor Neely?
Renata on?
Oh,
Sorry.
Renata.
I did have some questions for the applicants, if that's appropriate.
Sure. Yeah.
I drove by the facility today on the way to the meeting, and I was noticing a mural on the front, I guess it would be the south corner.
Mm-hmm.
Would this painting preserve that mural, or would it paint over the mural?
Thank you.
Oh, you're all interested in that?
Excuse me, can you identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm Ginny Van Loo, and I am a trustee for the Oregon City Elks, and I am the one that submitted the application. With me is Tom Ron, who is also a past Exalted Ruler, and we're here to answer any of your questions, so we'll start with this one. It's quite interesting about this mural because I took it to the lodge membership and said, what do you think about the mural? Should we paint over it, or should we keep it, or what should we do? And the answer was, we don't care, you decide, sort of, which is a big, that's a big burden. So as we went through, I announced it a couple times and got pretty much the same reaction. However, I did a little digging, and our former police chief, Gordon Harris, was on the committee that helped put that on the building.
Yeah.
And so he said it was painted over with some kind of a paint that would keep it from sun bleaching and all of that, and it actually has. It's been there for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to keep the mural. Why not? I mean, it's there, and it's fairly well preserved, and I'm sure that the contractor can paint right around it without much trouble.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
So my follow-on question then would be that the body of the building is intended to be this cream taupe color that you have now, and then the red trim would be kind of along the bump out. That's your vision? Okay,
Right.
Great. Thank you.
All right, nice to hear it's going to preserve the mural. So, Mayor Neely?
Yeah, I think on the north side, it looks like you had that red trim is already around it. Is it taking that same style over onto the other?
Yes.
Okay. I personally felt that should be brought out. I mean, whether it was outlined or whether you had two different shades of color there, but I think bringing that piece of the architecture of the building is important, and by taking that around to the front side, I think it'll bring that out, which should it doesn't show it as well as your north side does.
The former tenant who just moved out, that had the ballroom upstairs, painted that north side of the building. And so we felt that it would just be the right thing to do, carry it on around. It looks nice, and, you know, the Elks Lodges have always been purple, but, you know, maybe it's time to progress a little.
Just one other question. I noticed you had two, it looked like two quotes in there for painting jobs, and one of them mentioned the trim, and the other one just talked about one color, but I presume that whoever you go with, you're going to have that trim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Benville?
Yeah, sorry I was late. Traffic was horrendous. Yeah, actually, it was a follow-up with the 3 bids you received. And I know it's not a requirement as part of the application, but there was a pretty big spread in regards to the amount, and just wanted to make sure that, you know, that you have the sufficient amount of funds to do it right. So that was kind of my biggest concern.
The highest bidder there made me a little nervous because it was so high, and obviously he doesn't want the job, so that's how that works. But I had quite a conversation with the low bidder about all of this, and actually I found out that he paints all the stuff for Bob Stein Oil all over, so he knows what he's doing. He does it on a regular basis. Our issue is can you get it done before our state convention, which is the end of April. And so we'll have another conversation about that if we get the grant, if we're successful here tonight. And I'm going to ask him, you know, if the weather isn't going to cooperate here, to find as many days as he can to paint the front side of the building at least, and then we can deal with the 6th Street side later
and in
on.
April, you're going to need some good weather.
Yes.
Yeah, we are. We don't have much time.
It was great that you got 3 bids, though. And Eric, that is not a requirement, right, that they get 3 bids?
I'm going to have to verify
Okay,
that.
I think I read that in the report that it was. Oh,
It
okay.
says, well, not
I think
required
it
to
is.
supply 3 bids.
Well, not
Yeah.
required. Okay, but that was good, though. That was great. Commissioner Mingelberg?
Oh, sorry.
No? Okay.
I think the way we evaluate the applications, the bonus, if they have more than 1 bid, so we give extra points for
Great.
that. So.
Okay. Glad to hear that. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you for I usually catch the murals. I forgot about that one. So I think it is important to try to save that. That was Officer Mark Utes who actually painted it, and Gordon Harris was part of the committee, but it was an Oregon City police officer, an amazing artist, who painted that mural. I think that's all I really wanted to say. I appreciate the effort in saving that, and I think one of the things I might talk about at the end when we talk about upcoming or future agenda items, the version of the requirements that we have for the storefront grants were modified a couple years ago. Well, maybe it's been more than that. Since I've been on the commission, 2008, 2009, 10, somewhere around there, we updated the storefront grants, changed some things, talked about various things that the grants could be used for. Painting has always been in there, and it won't, affect my decision on these. I think this project especially, I think is important at the moment. But I think in the future, might want to talk about painting. I think when sometimes just painting a building is not enough. And I know we've done some projects in Oregon City where we've painted ugly buildings, and guess what? They still look like ugly buildings, just newly painted.
That's right.
So it won't affect my decision on these projects because they meet the criteria as we have set forth. But in the future, I might want to talk about, that painting stays in there, but in addition to other things that is ongoing. Because I think there's some examples tonight of buildings that maybe paint just is not enough for. And I think the Elks is one of those massive buildings that, needs a lot of work besides just painting. But
Well,
it's a good start, I think.
Just so you know, we have talked a number of times about taking that
Yeah,
brick
right.
stuff that's
Right.
up there. That
Yeah.
stuff weighs a ton.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be a nightmare
Flowered
to try
cutout brick, the flowered cutout brick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't know how long ago. Tom, do you know when that was?
1968.
There you go. That's a 1968 project. We've actually had an architectural rendering of what it could look like
Without, yeah.
all that stuff. We just don't have the money
Absolutely.
to do it. So we need, 1,000 or two more members, and we might be able to pull that off. So,
Well, keep it in mind while the matching funds are around, so.
oh,
That's a-
believe me, when I read it in the paper that there was little money there, I jumped right on it just like that. So, yeah, and we appreciate the fact that you're even talking to us about it. So.
Because there is some fine line between maintenance and just improvements
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know.
We've had the volunteers painted a number of times, and
Yeah.
we've been really good about it. We've gone down to Metro and got the recycled paint because they give us a good deal
yeah.
to do that, and it's lasted a long time actually.
Yeah.
From when we did it before, so that was interesting to note.
I think Commissioner Smith has a good point about the paint versus the structural changes, and that's reflected in the scoring as well. That's why this project didn't score real
Yeah,
high.
so the minimum threshold is 70%, and this scored is 72.
Right.
And I will say, though, that Main Street's backside is in need of
Yeah.
a makeover, and this will help it. The painting will help. So,
When you
Thanks
come
for
across
coming.
the Westland Bridge, I mean, it just looks awful.
Yep.
It does. We know it too.
yes, we need to put our best foot forward here. Okay, is there any other discussion?
The only comment I have is don't be shy about sending out your membership form to all of us, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a done deal. Did you get that done?
Well,
Interestingly, we have all the county commissioners are members of the Elks.
Yeah.
Not necessarily our lodge, but others.
Yeah.
I'm currently at Milwaukee, but
Yeah, I know how you got there, too.
Yeah.
Just
I-
the
I
same
don't
way
know
the
how you got
commissioner,
there.
the
I
other
may be
commissioners
willing to
got there.
change my mind.
You might be willing to add it.
Yes, I might be willing to change.
I see, well, we can handle that, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Are we ready for a motion or
Is-
any more discussion?
Is there any other discussion? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve the amount of $6,000 for the work there at the Elks.
Second.
Your screen's
Gotta
there?
touch your screen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Come on.
Working? Oh, there
No,
we go.
it's working.
There it goes.
There you go.
All righty. And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 14-134, Urban Renewal Storefront Grant for 720 McLaughlin Boulevard, the Butler Building.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is yet another one that fronts 99, which is very encouraging. This is basically a paint job as well. However, we, as staff reviewed the application, we did place some conditions on that for our recommendation. As you'll see them listed there below, they are requesting $2,950 for paint and trim. We've placed some conditions on there. Item number 3 under the conditions, I think, is being taken care of within the next day or so. So if that's the case, it would no longer be a condition. But we would like to maybe reconsider the paint combination. I think a darker trim, the inverse, the darker trim and a lighter body color would be more attractive in staff's opinion. And then the bars, if there's a chance to remove the bars from the windows, that would be a pretty significant
Yeah. Oh my
improvement.
gosh.
So that's our recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about it, and the applicant's here tonight as well. So.
Okay. Commissioner Benville?
Yeah, actually, it was that. Has the
Yeah.
applicant, yeah, that would be great.
Thank
Because
you.
I think that is an important part in regards to not just paint, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
to remove those bars is
Yeah.
what I was hoping that
Hi.
I'm
Hi.
Susan Savage. I'm the manager of the property, and my father is Howard Cohn of Howard's Furniture, who has the building at this time. The bars were 50,000. So much money was paid for those bars, and that's what the county wants. They don't feel they put them up there. That was all funded by them. They want to feel safe and protected from their neighborhood. And so I have no control over the bars, but you were talking about changing the trim color around. Was that something you guys felt that it would have been prettier to do?
At least that's what the staff recommended.
That was a consensus during our
We
review.
could ask the artist too,
Right.
on our commission.
Is that Rocky? I would love some input. It is. I want it to be beautiful, but then again, you've got to make it a little bit darker because of the weather that it comes against this. I need this to last for a long time.
So it's a dark pewter gray. Is that correct?
Do you guys have the color swatches in front of you?
It's hard when you print it out, printer colors change as well.
Yeah.
So would you describe it more like an olive or an evergreen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Olive. Yes. That was a good word.
And the building across the street is a dark gray. Is that correct? That's what I see in the picture.
The building across
Well,
the
it's next
street.
to-
Yes,
Across the alley.
on
Across
Main
the
Street.
alley. Okay.
It's greenish too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a green.
So it would
Oh.
blend.
Yes,
with
I was trying to
its
go
neighbor.
for blend. What's
Okay.
your opinion, Rocky Smith Jr.? I think it's really pretty behind you.
It's
The
better than what's
city
there.
color.
I will say that it's better than what's there.
Yeah, but I would be happy to take
Yeah.
recommendations. I just want it better than it is now.
Do you have anything else?
Well, I'd like
Let
to
me
follow
think
up, actually, because you had made a comment in regards to the county.
The bars?
Yeah, it doesn't-
The bars, they will,
So I'd like to hear.
Is this a
staff-
county building?
this is, I house the district attorney, and
Oh, so they're the
I'm connected to the
tenants.
courthouse.
Okay.
They're the tenants.
They're
They are
the tenants. The
Yes.
county is the tenant. They
Yes.
don't own the building, though, do
No, we own the building.
they? Okay.
No,
Okay,
they're
so
my
I guess
tenants.
I would, based on your comment, I'd like to hear from the staff on the legitimacy of it.
And,
Bars?
Yeah, and the process that would take to either recommend that the county removes them or how that would work, what pull we have in that.
Well, if the county is requiring them as part of their being a tenant in that building, we're looking at it just for aesthetic purposes. If they have another utilitarian purpose for those bars, and
Right.
yeah, I don't think that we would have any pull there. We're just requesting that maybe the applicant look into it to see how much it would cost to do that, to see if it would even be possible. And it sounds like tonight that it may not be possible.
It's there for their protection. The whole building's under
Yeah,
security.
so-
You have to be buzzed in.
Yeah, and so we definitely don't want to get in the way of or cause a problem with the tenant, or between the building owner and the tenants. That's the last thing we want to do.
There's another issue to that, and that is there were homes in the historic district that under historic review were not allowed to remove their bars.
Really? Okay.
And so it has to go through historic review before they can do that.
Yeah. Maybe we could paint the bars. I don't know.
Rainbow.
No, that could be a problem too.
Mayor Neely?
I don't know that there are any buildings downtown that are on the local inventory. I don't think the Historic Review Board has
Yeah, I don't
any
think there is
control of those
anything there.
buildings. Those are,
Yeah.
we tried to get businesses to go on the local inventory, and none of them would. So,
Well, it wasn't the historic inventory. It was a design review for the neighborhood.
Oh.
This one home I'm talking about was not on historic inventory, but it was design review.
well, that's because it's a McLaughlin Historic District.
Right.
And I don't know if we've
This
got any
isn't.
special protections downtown or not.
No, because downtown formed their own.
Yeah. So, I think anything that we can view from McLaughlin that looks better isn't to our benefit, even if it is primarily a paint effort. And I guess we've had so few things coming forward that improve the vision from McLaughlin. Is there a color pattern that will work on the bars that'll make them better, look better, besides black?
Rocky, did you want me to paint my bars?
I'm scared to start. I mean, I guess I'll request. I'm on the wrong thing. Anyway.
Okay. Commissioner Mingelberg?
So my personal opinion would be if you were to paint them a darker color, the
Right.
bars would recede
Right.
against the windows.
Right.
And that would be preferable to the white, which is very glaring at this point. And then on the body color, I like the idea that you're trying to harmonize with the verdict next door, but I'd encourage you to have it be a shade different so that it's not exactly the same, because the variation is what makes a Main Street interesting.
Wow.
Thank you. Commissioner
Yeah. So the comment about the bars being black, I mean that anything to darken them in comparison with the building is going to help. So that would definitely help.
Commissioner Roth?
No, I'm just.
Oh, okay. I see you down here.
Madam.
Okay.
Oh, am I down there? No, I already got it.
David?
I was just talking to Eric about this idea, and one of the things that I think I really appreciate the artistic and the color palette astuteness of the group, because I have problems in that area myself. But one of the things I know will work as far as softening the industrial edge of the frontage on 99 is if we could start doing more plantings, more things that look green, and they just softens the edge of everything else we're trying to do. So Eric's going to look at the program and see if we can't include some incentives for things like that to happen in the future. And of course, we encourage you to do it. We can't change the grant program here on the floor, but we're going to be looking at that as a way for all the applicants in that area to kind of help us soften the edge of how the industrial look of that affects people when they drive by. We want it to look more inviting, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be working on that.
Good. So including landscape into
Yes.
the scoring?
Yes, it's probably be most likely a bonus
Mm-hmm.
scoring. So that's something I can draft up and bring to you before the first of the fiscal year.
Good. That's sometimes a way to bring structural interest to something that doesn't, a building that doesn't have it.
Right.
So, good. Okay. Rocky, do you have anything?
Yes. I'll just say that one of the things I think that was included on the past, this has nothing to do with this applicant, one of the things that used to be on the application for storefront grant, I think did include some of those just very much more temporary things. I can't remember, but fencing and various other things that we took out for the sole purpose that we didn't want to be funding things that we didn't know were going to last.
Right.
Therefore, if a tenant comes in or someone comes in and puts in some landscaping, and then another tenant comes in and it's all gone. So we kind of changed that to focus on more permanent things. I think we should address that issue, but I'm not sure how to do that.
I think there's a difference there between what's required and what's bonus.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
agree.
and also the bonus points, keep in mind that the things at least we haven't talked this out, so I don't want to just make decisions here, but we wouldn't be looking at temporary kind of landscaping. We would be looking at things that are more heritage type trees that, are elms, oaks, things that get big and live a long time, and they're going to be part of the appearance for a considerable period.
Right.
I think that's what we'd be looking at, something that would establish a canopy.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Neely?
No, I guess I could almost withdraw it, but I won't. I was trying to think of the plantings, and we've had city plantings in pots next to the elevator that nobody took care of, and it did not add to the beauty of the neighborhood.
Right.
When they all die.
And whatever we do, we've got to make sure that whether if he's talking about perennial plants, and make sure they make it to the point where they can survive and look good, but that kind of investment I'm concerned about too, because if people don't maintain them, you make the city look worse.
Yeah, something other than cactus and arborvitae.
Renata?
I really appreciate Mr. Fraser's suggestion, and I would like to add to it. I really like the attractive low rock wall that's in front of what is, I think it's a gas station. So that may be something to consider, as well as landscaping as an option. and that doesn't need to be maintained. The other thing is that if you did include landscaping, since this is a voluntary program, you could require a 5-year maintenance agreement with clawback provisions to ensure that they look good and are well established.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on this?
I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve the storefront grant for 720 McLaughlin Boulevard.
And I'll second it.
Do what I didn't do.
Where is it?
We're waiting on her here, you guys.
I just want to say thanks for coming.
Yes.
And sharing about your project. And while we may get more excited about structural changes in the building
Everything helps.
itself, it is nice to see it updated and painted. So
I want to plant a cherry tree. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
We
Commissioner
haven't-
Polly.
We haven't.
It's not going.
We're having
Coming,
computer
so
issues.
Here we go.
All right.
Commissioner Mum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roth,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg,
Aye.
and Commissioner Benville,
Aye.
and Chair Polly.
Aye.
Can I ask for clarification of what's been approved? Is it just
Just the paint.
Just
the
the,
application.
just the
Yeah.
original grant.
Yes.
the original
Yeah.
color scheme and everything?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
all right.
yes.
Thank you.
still taking into consideration their suggestions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Now, if she takes into consideration the other suggestions, does she submit a addendum to the
Yeah.
grant? Okay,
So
great.
we need to do that, so.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to 14-131, the co-project schedule of preconditions.
So as I mentioned in our last meeting, in the DDA for the Cove project, there are numerous preconditions that need to be met prior to July 15th or August 15th. And staff going through the DDA has determined or has decided that, some could be administrative and others are to call for a more official vote from the Urban Renewal Commission. And so I've made an attempt to go through the preconditions and separate the administrative ones, the ones that I feel are administrative, and the ones that I feel need an official vote. And so this is just kind of a draft that I'm presenting to you tonight, and hopefully we can have a discussion. If there are any changes you'd like to make, we can discuss those. Or if you need clarification, I'm happy to provide that as well. So.
Are there any questions to start off with? Commissioner Roth?
Yeah, I do have. I've got a little bit of a problem with. I really appreciate your effort in separating them out, but since it is a URC regulation that we go through all of these changes, that they be presented to the commission. Of course, with your recommendation or whatever.
Right.
But I had some questions about equity documents.
Equity documents would be the financials from the partners that would primarily be taken to our land use attorney for review, and it's a very technical document that he would give the approval on, and it's something that I thought it's probably not something the commission would be interested in going through the line item by line item.
I don't want to go through it line item by line item, but to me, an equity document meant something totally different than what you just explained.
Okay.
So,
Equity documents would include the loan agreements as well, lender approval letter, and then the certainty that the loan is there, the numbers are there, that work for the closing.
okay. And then the second one was this TEMR sheet. It's the second to the last on the administrative.
I'm sorry. There's a little dyslexia there. It should be term sheet.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, so the M and the R switched.
Okay, that makes a difference there. Okay. So what I would like to see is your recommendation on these, but I would like to still see them brought to the commission.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
It's just these are I'd be happy to do that. It's just I didn't think the commission would want to go through the documents and plow over them and try to understand them and ask questions.
I don't want to do that. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we go through the official steps that we need to do.
So,
Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
On these kinds of things like Commissioner Roth was bringing up, it might be a way to make this more efficient, the process at least, without bogging down the commission, is that if you're okay with this, we could use that as some of these things as consent calendar
Consent,
items.
yeah.
And then if you see something, we actually like to have more eyes. We're just trying to not bury you in paperwork. And that way, if you see a consent calendar item, either preferably always before the meeting, give Eric a call, but if not, bring it up here. And that way you can kind of get the benefit of expediting the process, but also the check-in and with the
That sounds
commission.
perfect.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We'll try to use the consent agenda a little bit more than we have been.
And doing
Thank
that really
you.
helps us meet our obligations as far as the timeline too and the DDA. So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Neely?
I guess the timelines that are given here, everybody accuses me of linear logic, and that's okay, but I have some difficulty in envisioning the timeline, because the timelines here are tied into different pieces. I don't think they're necessarily the ones that are right in front of the one preceding. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it almost as a spreadsheet, if we see these timelines, so we know where it ties into clearly, and so we get a better picture of what those timelines are, because these aren't linear with respect to the order they're given.
Right.
There's a staggered thing here, and if there's a mechanism where you could actually present that, it has nothing to do with the vote I would make, but when you bring those things forward again, to actually have some kind of visual that indicates what it's tying back to.
Some sort
all
of
the time.
chart that identifies.
Like a
yes,
project
yes.
management
Right.
sheet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I am planning to do. It's very labor intensive, and I didn't quite have enough time to do it for this meeting, but it will be produced. So.
Do you have project management software?
No, I don't. I just have to do it manually on Excel.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Migelberg.
Just a clarification question. It is referenced under the formal URC approval several times about an effective date. It's mentioned 3 times. What is the
The
effective
effective
date?
date is the date that the document was signed, so that's January 10th, 2014.
Thank you.
All right, Ed Darrell, please come up. You can come up. Have a seat. Welcome.
Thank you. Is on this topic, my name's Ed Darrell, developer of the Cove. One of the items which will be due on Monday, which is the BOLI determination
I saw that.
letter, that became a phenomenal exercise with the attorneys. It's been turned in. I've talked with the BOLI gal that will be doing the work, and she says she does not believe that she'll be able to have it by the 10th, which is Monday. So I brought a request to have that extended. Probably it wouldn't take more than a week or so, but I put 30 days just to make sure, because last time when they did it, I called them, and they turned it in 3 days late, if you recall, and I was told I would have it. So I'd like to get an extension on that. And just to show that we are doing a lot of performance, I brought along tonight the infrastructure specs and plans, also the design development plans for the garden and the waterfront units, and a draft agreement for the dirt with Tri-Cities, and the form of the bond. So I'll give those to Eric this evening. And they are big rolls of plans, and the intent is to have those up at, I guess, David's conference room, so that you go up and view those, and if you have any questions, certainly give me a call.
Okay. Ed, can you briefly explain the BOLI letter to maybe citizens that are watching, saying, what is that?
Yeah, the BOLI is a mandate that the DDA is requiring. Ordinarily, you wouldn't have to do that, but the DDA is requesting that we make sure that BOLI is either going to not hit us with prevailing wage, which basically is about a 13-14% increase in our costs, which would be devastating. So we spent a lot of time, I didn't spend a lot of time, but the attorneys did, going through and making sure that they could support the position that any grant that is made by a public agency that exceeds $750,000 automatically throws you into a prevailing wage. So we are at 745,000, and then they also break it into separate projects. And in this case, we have phase 1, which is a separate project. It's on separate ground. So that's one of the legal arguments they made. Phase 2 starts at a different time, has different potential partners in it, has different dirt, and has a whole different design. So by splitting that up and saying, right, this one's getting 372,500, and the next one, which is 24 to 30 months later, is getting the same amount, we believe that that will not compromise anything that's gone before. Because originally there was a contribution made for plans and specs that were purchased for like $1,176,000. In going through that with all of our consultants, we went through and said, what of that applies to the current project? Because that was for 2007 and 2008. So it came out to about 19%, which was $227,000. So when you pull it all together and say separate projects, we should not have a problem in not having to meet the prevailing wage program.
Thank you. I learned a little something
Thank you.
there.
Well, actually, just take it back one step. What does BOLI stand for?
That's the Bureau of Business and Industry.
Labor and
Labor.
Labor,
Yeah.
yeah, one of those things. So they, and we got several support letters. So we got one from Senator Alan Olson, from Representative Kilmer, from the mayor, from Carlotta Colette, and then from the Oregon Business Alliance. Those were all submitted also. And our attorney has a very good relationship with the head commissioner at BOLI, and she has contacted him separately. So I think that we should be in good shape, but just a function of timing. So if you could authorize a 30-day extension, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Benville.
Okay, it was kind of an extension of what Mr. Neely mentioned in regards to the timeline, because everything was all tied, a lot of it was tied to the effective date of July 10th. So I would have expected an actual date of when they're required to submit it to us, so that we can make sure that everything's is up and up, and that we're not going to just accidentally miss one of these that's bound by the contract. So, and I'm assuming that is it 60 working days or calendar days? I don't know what the days are based on.
It's working days. We're
That's
going
what I
by
thought it
working
would be.
days.
So that would just kind of help, so that we have, like, for instance, March 10th. We know that that's a very important date, and making sure we don't miss these days.
I
And
was
then,
born on that day.
well,
very
well, happy birthday.
Very important.
Would you like an extension?
I'm hoping for this. The more I get, the longer I'm having to extend it.
And now that the project's moving along, I think we just want to make
Yeah,
sure that we're on top of it and really know the timeline and.
Yeah, we don't miss anything
Yes.
because of a formality. And maybe there's an extension like the BOLI item that you might need. And so,
Certainly. And I
keep it
do
up on
have
that.
the project management, and I've actually put it on that. I can share that with Eric. I've laid it out. It's a large spreadsheet, but
He
you
has
cannot
project management
manage it
software.
without that.
He has the software.
He has the software that you should have.
Yeah.
That's one of my
So
suggestions.
Eric's going to be bringing that forward. Commissioner Benville, are you finished with your remarks?
The only other comment I had was, I think that you also have an update on the vertical housing determination.
We have got both
Some
of those
update?
approved.
Yay.
So that's huge, right? I mean,
well,
and that
that's
wasn't
huge.
until August
That's
15th.
very
So
right.
maybe
That's
you
ahead
can
of
kind of give
schedule.
that as an update to the public that's listening.
Certainly. The vertical housing program, a guy by the name of Don Herman administers that down at the state, and I've spent several days with him back and forth going through it. We did a very detailed presentation to him that not only shows all of the frontage, and the requirement is that everything that fronts on a main street has to have at least 50% of that has to be non-residential. In our case, the waterfront units, it's 58% is non-residential, because we have, every building has a office component, and then 2 of the buildings have restaurants in them, and 2 of them have exercise and office in it. So that got us through at that level. Plus, each of the plans, they go through a calculation to say how many vertical floors you have. and it's kind of a tricky little formula that they have. So to get to an 80% credit abatement on the taxes, we actually had to add to a couple of the buildings some lofts, which actually over 500 square feet gives you an extra building height. And when you go through the calculator, even with 4 stories of buildings, we could not get to an 80%. So I worked with him, and he says, well, there's other ways to do it. So we actually went back and fixed it so that it is an 80% abatement on the waterfront. On the garden, it's the same thing. Those are all 3-story buildings, but even with 100% 3-story buildings, you can't get to 60%. So part of those actually have a pop-up element that gets you an additional floor. So in working through that with them, they were actually very gracious in helping me, and we've got it all approved and done. So we've got certifications on those.
Great.
Good. And that approval was very important because that made a big difference in the amount of risk that the Urban Renewal Commission undertook.
Well,
So that enabled you to do the project
If
with
we didn't
much
get it,
less
we wouldn't
ask.
be able to do the project,
Right,
because
right.
that gets us back over a 10-year period. Even though when you take and bring it back to current present value, it only represents about $4.5 million, and we'll be putting in about $8 million. But over the time frame of 10 years, it's worth about $7 million. But in real terms, it comes down to about 4.5 million.
So then you adjusted the plan. Did you run that past the urban, Eric?
The plans I have here tonight, that's part of the design development plans, which you'll be able to take a look at.
So you knew that the loft or whatever? No.
I didn't. I didn't know that component of it, but the design development plans are something that the commission will have to approve.
Oh, okay.
So it'll come
Okay.
to you.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention that he's still going to have to go through plan review and building review and all that. So there's got to be.
Oh, okay, okay.
A minute ago, you made me, I got kind of nervous when I heard
got-
this thing pop-up element. That
Yeah.
to me means a camper.
Yeah.
My connotation.
I went there
It's not-
too,
it's one of
pop
the-
up, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, one of the
red
kind
flag.
that's not bear resistant.
So pop
yeah.
up to you is one thing, and won't pop up.
I think it's internet.
The loft, given the vertical height of the roof line, is not even really changing the roof line on the garden units.
Okay.
And because there's only 2 buildings that we're doing it on the waterfront, the center roof line is much higher than the rest of it, so it's actually going into an element that's already there. So it's not really an architectural change.
Okay.
It's just an interior change to the space.
Perfect.
The way we have it written in the DDA is once they're done with the land use process and they receive their approvals, then it comes back, the approval comes to the commission for another approval of the
Okay.
approvals. Not in a land use capacity, but just say, give your stamp, say.
Like what you
that's good to
see.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
David?
So, I'm reminded of the philosophy that we've been trying to use on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, which is a phrase that you've heard our staff use as flexibility with certainty.
Yeah.
And tonight, Mr. Darrow's emphasizing the flexibility side of that. The problem we have is that this isn't on the agenda. And so we can I don't think there will be a problem with the commission addressing this in a couple of weeks, or when the next meeting is at the next
Right.
meeting date.
Yeah.
But I do want to encourage you, Mr. Darrow. I know that when you're dealing with agencies in Salem, sometimes you don't find things out till the last minute. But Eric got this information, I think, today about 5 o'clock. And it's hard for us to staff to even evaluate this on behalf of the commission and make any recommendations. And I just try to avoid that if you can, so we're not in an awkward position of saying we can't recommend approval of something because we just found out about it. So to the extent you can avoid that, we sure would appreciate it.
And I do understand. I did bring it up at the last hearing that we might have a problem, but I didn't know that I was going to actually have it until 2 days ago myself. So
It probably won't be the last time.
No,
We may need an
unfortunately.
extension of our own, so that's a two-way street. But anyway, I just want to mention that to the extent
Well,
you can. Let us know sooner as
I
possible.
appreciate the flexibility.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Neely?
Yeah, I guess the question would simply be the delay you're talking about. How does the timeline software you're talking about? To know how those shift. Maybe many of these deadlines will not be affected in the process.
No, it's not gonna impact any of the other deadlines.
And so you don't have an issue with us making Are we to approve this, or is this
Not,
just
not at this meeting.
Yeah, okay, that, I was pretty sure that was the case.
Yeah.
But just wanted to...
But if you were to approve it the next meeting, I have no, it's not going to impact the timeline, the rest of
Okay.
the timelines in the
All right,
DDA.
good.
Commissioner Roth?
This may be a question out of premature, I guess, but I attended an appeals meeting today for a very large project, and one of the design elements was that there had to be a 15% clear window frontage on anything that faced a street. Is that something that we have in this project, or do we meet that threshold?
It's for the vertical housing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they got the certificate.
I would imagine so, and we meet it if they've gotten the
They've got their
certificate.
certificate,
Yeah.
but we don't know specifically that that's part of what they.
I have no knowledge of that.
Commissioner Roth, that sounds more like a code provision than part of the vertical housing program. I think it is, but I.
It is not in the vertical housing program.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but that sounds sort of like standard code language that I've heard in a lot of cities that developers usually don't like very much.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so there's no needed approval of this.
Right.
This is just Commissioner Benville?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to request to speak, but I don't know what's going on there, but.
That's okay.
Anyways.
What would you like to say?
On the floor.
Yeah, you're on, just,
Okay, you're fine.
you're
Okay.
on there now.
Okay. So it's actually more of a formality. This timeline was just more of a request and a tool. And I don't know if there's an official approval that we need, because I would be worried about conflicting with our actual agreement.
Right.
So, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
So it's information only.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even if
kinda.
this was an official approval, it wouldn't conflict with our agreement, because these are the preconditions that are listed in the agreement. I'm not asking for an approval. I just want to make sure everybody was okay with this, and we'll just proceed this way, and we'll put the items that are deemed administrative on the consent, or just give you updates as things have come in.
Good, good. I think
So what Eric will basically be doing is putting together for you
Yeah.
a calendar, not to approve, but to just kind of keep your head
Keep
wrapped
track.
around what's happening.
exactly.
And tracking it just as a tool for you to kind of organize your thoughts around the project.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It was important for us to see it, and we'll look for the updates
Okay.
as they occur. Thank you. Ed mentioned something about wanting authorization for a 30-day extension. Should we?
That's
That's the
I'll
one
bring
we
that.
wait.
I'll
That's
put
the
that
one
on the
we
agenda
wait
for next meeting.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to the minutes of the February 5th, 2004 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Excuse me. And one more, Kathy.
Jenny?
And motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, future agenda items.
Are we go on the floor here?
Commissioner Roth?
Okay, I've got a few here. I really like David's suggestion of maybe looking at landscape elements in the grant process. I don't know if anybody's looked at the Ladderette House lately and the landscaping that's been done there.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
It's very nice.
And also, there's something I think maybe we should incorporate in there. I don't think it's in there now, but the use of recycled materials, giving credits for recycled materials.
There's an item on there for sustainable materials, and so we look at that as if they're recycling material.
Well, sustainable is different than recycled.
Well, we can clarify that in there, because that's how we're evaluating it. Just
Okay.
sustainable. You know,
Yeah.
if they're using green methods, or if they're recycling material, or
Well, I was just really impressed with her using the recycled paint. I think that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
yeah.
And
So
so,
that
I'd
one-
like to clarify those two if that's the way
Yeah,
it is.
that she was evaluated. I mean, that was noticed, and so
Okay.
that's why she.
But
got
is it
the
an
score she
official
did.
part of the process of their evaluation?
It is part of the list, yes.
Okay.
And so it's just our matter of interpretation of sustainability. We think of that as being green or
Right.
or recycling. So, but we can call
Split
that
those?
that term out.
Okay.
Sure. In that.
And then the third one, or the last one, is I would really like to make a recommendation that we make project management software available to the departments that need it. That's kind of a basic thing for people that are trying to get work done.
I'm going to have Eric talk to Tony and see if there's another department that has something he can use, and if not, we'll just look at that as a task item in our budget and see if we can acquire it.
Thank you.
It usually requires training to go along with it, and
Yeah.
so it depends on kind of how long the training is.
But
I
we
wanna
would
have a
like to have
tool
more
if he can-
projects, so
Yeah,
that would be good.
exactly.
That would be good. To kind of follow up what Kathy said about landscape elements, do we have bonus points for art elements as well? Or is that something that we could include as well as landscape elements, pieces of art?
It's not included in there now, unless you want to include it under innovative design, which that's kind of a stretch in my mind. But we could include that as a bonus
So we
item.
could discuss that later.
Yeah.
I'd like us to bring back.
Yeah, I think-
it sounds to me like the recycled is more of a almost like a semantical thing that would be real easy to just do. The other two, why don't we just bring all three of these back in a list in a future work session
Yeah.
with some recommendations from Eric and the staff about how to focus those into the credit system. And basically what we need from you is approval that you want those in there in a more official way than this.
Right.
And then we'll incorporate them into the applications, and we've done it. Does that sound acceptable?
Yes.
Good with you, Eric?
That's great.
Thank you.
To build on the art idea, would a mural be considered art?
Yes.
Don't
Or
make
is
us
that
define art.
Is that a separate?
No.
Is that a separate program that the city already has? Because I was thinking on the Elks building, that could be considered part of the beautification, should they so choose.
Yeah. I mean, all that should be on the agenda, because I think, and I don't think it's a bad idea for us to look at that, the criteria every year, because things change so often and evolve. And I don't like being, having to make decisions kind of while we're talking about things that come forward and think of something. But I think the murals, all of the things that have been brought up in the paint, I think all those need to be talked about.
One thing I think I'm hearing the voice of the city attorney ringing in my head right now. When we talk about art, you remember he's always talking about content and getting very worried about, because what is art to one person is, I don't know, graffiti to somebody else. And so we're going to have to be kind of careful about how we word this art provision and make sure that
But
the city
we can give credit to people saving existing murals that are already there.
I'm
I mean,
sure there's
that's
things we
completely
can do.
different.
I just think we're going to have to recognize that there are
Absolutely.
going to be some limits to how we deal with it.
That's
I
true,
agree.
but I'd like to make one other point about especially the murals, is that not every building has murals.
Yeah.
And so when they submit an application, they're submitting it under
Right.
the pretense that it's an even
It's a
playing
level
field.
playing
Right.
field.
Yeah. And
That's
so
my concern.
that kind of makes it an uneven playing field. And whereas if a building with a mural is going to get a lot of higher points than the building without, well, they can't do anything about it if they don't have one.
Right.
And so it could be a competition for limited funds, and I see that as a potential issue.
I guess I was looking at it as a different way, that if a business owner was going to be proposing a facade improvement that included a new mural as part of the program, that would be good in some cases. It would be something that would make the building more distinctive.
What city attorney say? It depends.
It all depends on your
So,
version.
and we will discuss this at the work session when we bring this back.
Yes.
So, Rocky, did you have any other future agenda items? to
No,
add?
that was it.
Okay.
Just all.
Mayor Neely, do you have a future agenda item?
When we change these criteria, I feel that there has to be a timeline between the time that we approve them and the time they're
Yes.
implemented. If you've got
Yes.
if you got an entity, a group that's already well into the process,
yeah, absolutely.
you don't want to mess them up.
Right.
And I think the sustainability thing is important, but I think there needs to be the capability of exemptions, and I'm just going to bring up recycled paint as an example. There are certain brands of paint for exterior purposes that are far longer lasting and durable than other brands, and I don't know when they recycle that they sort them into brands or anything of that nature. if in fact it's the sustainability should not only be whether it's recycled, but it should be the durability of the product as well. And so that's just a comment I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Benville, do you have a future agenda item?
I do. A couple things to comment on. One is if we could every once in a while get a kind of like a status of how much money we have left in our grant programs, like for instance the storefront. And
I could tell you that right now, if you like.
That would be great. Thank you.
So I could tell you for the storefront grant.
And have you done some tractors now that we've approved a couple?
No, I haven't, but I had assumed. I prepared ahead of time. Thanks to Michelle. So after these two grants are awarded, these two most recent ones, we have a total of $6,034 left in the line item. But they will be unavailable due to our periods, our grant open periods for accepting applications. The next time we open up for applications will be for projects that'll be the following fiscal year. So it'll be 14-15.
So does that 6,000 roll into the next budget?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
We would have to approve
You'd
that,
have
right?
to approve
Okay.
that,
Okay.
yes.
And so the new grant cycle starts when?
July 1.
July 1.
July 1. And applicants have two stabs. They had a stab at it last June before we established the two different open periods. And they had one again in January to apply. And so that makes it more competitive to do it that way.
Okay. And the other one was actually a comment from another agenda item, and it had to do with the whole Boley letter, the request for extension. And it's my understanding that maybe they only gave it to you at 5 o'clock today. But I saw in the timeline here that they needed to have a decision by March 10th. And March 10th is before our next urban renewal meeting. So
Well,
if it's something that we need to make a decision on,
It's not a decision from the commission. It was just a determination letter submitted to us by the 10th. Yes.
okay.
So it's not something that the commission or representatives of the commission approve. It's just a letter to make sure that there is approval from the state agency.
Okay. And I was just noticing even in the actual agreement, it says within 60 days of the effective date. So if that would be the case, they have more time than March 10th. So I don't really know how the March 10th even came about.
Well, the March 10th was just a safe date.
Okay.
It is calendar days instead of working days. But we can look at the way the DDA is written, we can interpret that. So there's some flexibility there.
Okay.
We can include working days.
Again, my point is to make sure no one gets in trouble here, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're playing it conservatively.
Okay.
Make sure we meet all the deadlines.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Is that it for future agenda items?
So I guess what is our future agenda item?
A lot.
A lot. Are we gonna look at the whole application process? Are we gonna look at just the bonus parts of it?
Perhaps all.
Sounds
Just
like
the amendments?
just the bonus parts.
Adding in landscape elements, possibly art, just general discussion about that.
Okay.
Okay, hearing no more future agenda items, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
I don't have anything new to report tonight, but just for the benefit of our newer commission members, I know that for some of you, you may have questions that aren't necessarily future agenda items, but they're just questions. And I also know that you're both, I think, working and pretty busy people. So, but if you have the opportunity to call Eric or myself or anybody else on our staff that you think would be helpful to you before the meeting, please do that. And there are no, I mean, that can be after a meeting, it can be before the meeting, it can be right before the meeting, because we just want to be helpful and so that you can be as well prepared and comfortable making these decisions as you possibly can be. But I have nothing else to report.
Thank you. All right, ready to adjourn.